It's really funny how sometimes the Michael Bay Transformers films would often take a name that's been unused for a while, slap it on some random character with little to no regard for its previous uses, and that just becomes the most important version of that character, even if said character doesn't even speak. Topspin was originally a jump starter in Generation 1, a character who never appeared in the original cartoon, even though both he and Twin Twist received line art for such a role. Apparently he had a much bigger role, and by that I mean he actually showed up in the Marvel comic, associating himself with the Wreckers. I suppose that was enough for him to show up once again in the live-action adaptation of the bombastic subunit. And of course, he was nothing more than a background character with a hugely disproportionate amount of merch attached to him. Am I complaining? No, I just think it's funny. Welcome to Kit Katastrophe. My name is Kit, and today we'll be taking a look at Transformers Studio Series Deluxe Class Topspin. This figure was released in 2020 as part of Wave 10 of the Deluxe assortment, and shares components with Transformers Studio Series Deluxe Class Roadbuster. This figure represents Topspin's appearance in the 2011 film Transformers Dark of the Moon. Keeping with the Wreckers' theme of turning into Mad Maxified versions of highly recognizable NASCAR stock cars, Topspin disguises himself as the number 48 Chevy Impala driven by recurring NASCAR champion Jimmy Johnson, finding itself unusually bereft of the Lowe's branding that previous Topspin figures sported. Apparently in 2018, Jimmy Johnson had an extremely poopy season. One so poopy, in fact, that Lowe's wants nothing to do with that washed-up has-been, so it seems that Hasbro couldn't make a Topspin that has both the number 48 and the Lowe's logo. This, at least, is very fitting when compared to Roadbuster, who lacks his own AMP Energy and National Guard sponsors, though both cars feature Impala branding on the front bumper. It's kind of wild that these two vehicles are pretty much completely different despite them supposedly sharing a chassis. Roadbuster is very rear-heavy, with most of the armor and mass surrounding his massive jet engine, while Topspin is more evenly distributed, though his front end shows an absolutely massive engine block peeking out through the rich blue fiberglass armor. The 48s on either side are tilted the wrong way and kind of don't really look like what they're supposed to, but that's something of a nitpick. They're placed on an absolutely radiant silver that runs from the flanks all the way to the rear, really breaking up all the dark gunmetal and black. Topspin features a third 48 up top, but the guns obscure part of it. Who does he think he is, Casey Kane? Those guns are made of an extremely soft and flexible rubber, which is 1000% guaranteed to be deformed right out of the package, and unlike the original Dark of the Moon figure, cannot be removed. What are removable, however, are the two side-mounted guns, which are also made of that same soft rubber. Each of the 4 gun barrels are compatible with War for Cybertron blast effects, though they will droop under the weight. Topspin's signature claws are stored underneath the chassis using 2 ports behind the front wheels. Once you remove his 4 accessories, Topspin's transformation is nowhere near as cluttered and frustrating as Roadbuster's. The entire side panels of the car come clean away and are able to be moved on a largely free barbell joint, though their connections to the windshield are actually scarily tight. For the first few conversions, getting them loose from those pegs can prove a challenge, depending on your copy's tolerances, of course. Topspin's arms come out in a manner very similar to Roadbuster's, but that may just be a symptom of coming from the same area of car. Interestingly, as far as transformation-relevant pieces go, only the elbows and hands are the same across both figures. The legs are very straightforward, with few moving parts, though that does come off as rather boring. Finally, the way the backpack comes together and settles into place feels half-baked, as the windshield sticks out way too far and really feels like it should come in a lot more snugly. It doesn't even lock in place on its swivel joint, adding to that feeling of incompleteness. Robot mode might just be my least favorite thing about Topspin. There was no clear vision to this design whatsoever, but that's kind of par for the course when it comes to background characters in the Bayformers films. It's just a shame that Roadbuster and Leadfoot both get really good or at least inspired designs, while Topspin is just kind of a pile of nothing with massive shards of fiberglass hanging off him. This is one thing that I can safely say is completely outshined by his original Dark of the Moon predecessor. With his blue legs and bare gray arms, torso, and head, he looks the spitting image of a shirtless NASCAR fan tailgating in the infield on a sunny weekend afternoon, getting a tan in nothing but his blue jeans. Meanwhile, Studio Series just looks like wide Putin, but fails to be funny. Topspin is completely flat when looked at from the side, with the illusion of depth given only by a backpack that appears to hover 50 meters away from his spine, additionally making him look even hollower than he actually is. Helping it along are the entire side panels of the vehicle mode, which the instructions prescribe being displayed jutting straight backwards. There really isn't a good way to position these things since they're so long and thick that they just look cumbersome from every angle. Roadbuster had some shitty kibble management, yes, but that only made him look like crap from the back, whereas Topspin entirely lacks a good side. The head sculpt is an improvement over the Dark of the Moon figures, having some proper cyan sunglasses and the net mullet effect removing any resemblance to how Walt Disney drew dog ears. Actually, it looked like a great fit on the original in terms of aesthetics, though of course it's too big to fit for transformation. The problem on Studio Series Topspin is that the head is set too far down and too far back, as if he's trying to hide in his own shoulder line. It lacks a lot of expressiveness that it should have had to begin with, bringing down an already bad figure even further. At least the legs are kind of nice, especially from the back, but really, who's going to admire a Transformer's calves? While they were attached to the sculpt on the Dark of the Moon mold, Studio Series Topspin comes with 2 rubber clamps that peg into his forearms, which are especially sculpted to accommodate their contours. As immobile as they may be on this version, it does leave Topspin's hands open to wield weapons normally, such as the 2 leftover machine guns from vehicle mode. Though honestly, you're best leaving them on the car cable and giving Topspin his mech tech gun. He really needs a win, guys. Topspin's neck joint is a somewhat free ball joint that allows him to rotate his head 360 degrees so long as the mullet doesn't get in the way of the sculpting, which it tends to do very often. He can look up, he can tilt his head somewhat, but he can't look down very much because the chin bumps into the chest plate, which kind of ruins any sort of real characterful ranges of motion. The shoulders are ball jointed, that allows them to rotate that far outwards and rotate 360 degrees forward and backwards. They are extremely unimpeded, and it is helped that these car chunks are on ball joints. They are on a dumbbell joint with 1 ball joint there and 1 ball joint there that allows for a lot of variability. It's good for getting out of the way of everything, but it's not really good for actually looking good. This back panel doesn't really peg into place anywhere, and it just kind of flops around sometimes. There's nothing at the waist, which is a shame because the original Dark of the Moon figure had a waist joint. It was part of his transformation, and seeing that not on this Topspin is a shame, but that's because of this joint right here that allows the backpack to compress. The hips are ball jointed, and that allows a nice spread. It allows them to kick forwards and backwards, you know, once you get shit out the way. The thighs rotate 360 degrees on a mushroom joint, and the knees don't have a very nice bend to them. That's pretty poor. And there's really nothing dedicated at the foot, but I guess you can use this transformation joint a little to get a little bit of a toe joint if that's your thing. I don't really see it as very useful. Topspin is just kinda poopy when it comes to... And I have just realized that I kind of forgot everything below the shoulder. The biceps rotate 360 degrees. They have a nice double-jointed elbow bend, which does give a really nice degree of freedom there. And the wrist can move in for transformation, but that kind of looks like he broke his wrist. So, like I was saying, Topspin's kinda poopy. He can move a bit more than his bro Roadbuster, but that's just more because everything's more spread out on Topspin, whereas everything's all clumped together on Roadbuster. They have similar qualities in their joints, similar ranges. It's just that Topspin, you can move his kibble around. I can't really say that Studio Series Topspin was a figure I've soured on considerably, but that would imply that I thought he was anything more than mediocre when I got him. The vehicle mode is nice, I will give him that. You can never go wrong with a stock car bristling with guns, and anyone who tells you otherwise is a stupid liberal who probably voted for Michael Dukakis. This figure is an outright downgrade from the Dark of the Moon figure in pretty much every aspect, from the robot mode, to the engineering, to the accessories. But I suppose that's to be expected nowadays, isn't it? At least Roadbuster had the benefit of actually turning into the thing that was in the movie for once. Really, I cannot with good conscience recommend this figure unless you're looking to complete the Wrecker Trio. Speaking of which, when I started this script, I had no idea if I was going to be able to do that, what with the absolute scarcity of Target exclusives in my area. Well, we'll just have to wait and see, won't we? Especially given how slow I've been to produce videos lately. Anyway, I don't think Topspin is worse than Roadbuster, but not worse enough to get anything other than the rank of tragic. If you liked this video or otherwise found it helpful or informative, then please subscribe for more reviews like this in the future, and feel free to suggest topics for future reviews in the comments. When we return, it'll be time to blaze a new trail back to the glory days of Cybertron. This has been Kit Katastrophe. Transform and roll out.